What's up, Wargamers? Welcome back to World of Wargaming. I'm Isaiah, and today again I invite you to grab a snack, a tasty beverage, and a comfy chair, and let me talk at you for a minute. Today, I'd like to talk at you for a minute about Grimdark Future from One Page Rules. So if you are not familiar, if you're somehow not familiar with this, that's okay. That's why we're here. So One Page Rules is a company that makes, I don't know that they're heartbreakers necessarily, but games that fit with the aesthetic of things like 40K and Age of Sigmar and Fantasy Battles and Kill Team and Warcry and all these other things, but with a better rule set. So if you're a person like me who has a large collection of, for example, 40K models, but you don't really have anything fun to do with them right now, for whatever reason. I'm not here to bash the big guys. I don't want to be negative, but just if you're not feeling that vibe right now and you're looking for something to do with those models, this is a really, really, really good option. So One Page Rules offer the basic rules for free. Basic, how to play the game. These are the rules. These are your stats. Have at it. Bloody each other up real good. You can also purchase the full advanced rules, which has things like command points and some extra missions. The base rules only have the one mission, but it's not difficult to port a mission over per se. But that's only $5 on Wargame Vault, so that's very, very reasonable. You also, my understanding is that you get access to all of the full rules for all the games, I think, if you join their Patreon, and they make some really cool sculpts. I do not subscribe to their Patreon personally, but I have a friend who does, Will, who you'll see in the game that'll be in one of those corners about a week after this one, or after this show. He has subbed, and he's shown me some of the prints that he's made, and they are awesome. So the core design, and I hope that I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, Gaetano Ferrara. I'm going to go with the last name, Ferrara. And the illustrations are by Brandon Gillum. And they're really nice, you know, kind of, very kind of flash animation type illustrations, which I enjoy a great deal. The core gameplay is very straightforward. You have use D6s, D3s, 2D6, D6 plus 1, whatever. You can't re-roll a re-roll. You have to go with the second result of the re-roll. You have modifiers. A 6 is always a success. A 1 is always a fail. So there are some things here that are very, very familiar. And it is, you know, maybe it is a heartbreaker. If you're not familiar with the term heartbreaker, a heartbreaker is a term from tabletop RPGs where someone will take a game or something that has a really good setting but has what they view as bad rules, and they just kind of rewrite the rules. And it's legal. There's no, you know, copyright infringement or anything that they can be hit for. So if you're used to playing the big guys games, there's a lot in this that is going to be very, very, very familiar to. It feels very much older editions, but still very, very stripped down. There's not a whole lot of meat to the rules. Even though there are probably 15 to 20 special rules, they only take up like a page and a half in the rule book. It's very compact, very easy to just pick up and go. And that's awesome, especially if you've already got those models sitting around on the shelf or the display cabinet or in a case or wherever. So the game is played in rounds. The first mission in the book, which is the one you'll see me play in that bat rat in about a week, is 4 rounds. That's it. Just 4 rounds and we're done. Your round is everybody's activations. Turns are when you activate a model. So in this game, it's not you go, I go. And it's also not random draw activation like in Warlord games. It's just a unit for a unit, back and forth, passing the activations until everybody's units have activated, and then you go to a new round, which I love. I'm a big fan of alternating activations. I'm not a huge fan of I go, you go, Because then I feel like there's a lot of time that I'm just sitting there like, well, sure wish I was pushing a model around right now. And it's not, you know, it's just not as fun. When you pick a unit to activate, it gets one activation. And I like that there's a list. There's a list of things right here. There's 4 things that you can choose to do. I like this because it feels very bolt action-y. So it's something that I am, at the moment, more familiar with than current iterations of other games. So you can hold, which is just like a fire order in bolt action. You just stand and you shoot. You can advance, which is move your 6 inches and take your shots. And another thing that I like about this game is that it's universal movement. Infantry, everything moves 6, unless you have the special rule fast, whatever. If it's fast, I think you get an extra 2 inches. So from what I've played anyways, the fastest I can get is +2 on an advance or +4 on a rush, which is the next order, which is, again, you just double your movement. So it's just 12 inches up the board in whatever direction or combination of directions you want to go, as long as you don't exceed that 12 inches. Next you have, and then finally you have your charge action, which is to just make a run at them. Within 12 inches, there's no rolling for charge, so that cuts, you know, a little bit more time out of the game. Now, I do kind of like, I don't dislike rolling for a charge, because there's always that element of failure, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but I also like just going at it, getting it done in combat, not being this long, drawn-out tar pit of an affair, which in this game it is not, because like in other more recent war games, or just the more current, what's been more common in war games that I've played recently is you have your combat, you determine who won or lost, and then everybody breaks away or everybody's dead. But there's none of this, just the whole game of being stuck in and unable to get away from a unit and do other things, which I like. So I actually, when we play, I actually use order dice to mark the units that have activated and what they did. And I like that because then again, I'm using something else from my collection that I already have. Then you got your movement, which is very, very simple. When you move your 6 inches, there is unit coherency, but coherency is 2 inches to one other model, and the whole unit has to be within 6 inches of itself. So you cannot, like, they've written daisy chain out of the game from the get-go, which is awesome because daisy chaining is sometimes very effective, but also just lame. It's just lame. Daisy chaining is lame. Now, let me say, when I say daisy chaining, I don't mean like you've got 5 or 6 guys or maybe 10 guys stretched out a little bit. I'm talking when you got a unit of like 40 and they just make a conga line all the way across. That's absolutely ridiculous. Shooting, again, very, very basic. Your models have pretty much 2 stats. Movement is universal. You have your quality and you have your defense. Your quality is your target number for all of your hitting. Also, it's the target number for your morale tests. And your defense is your target number for your save. And then if a weapon has AP, which is what it's called in this game, then you modify that roll. Very, very, very basic. But big thing that I'm a fan of here, there's no roll to wound. It's roll to hit, roll to block, deal damage, remove casualties. There's none of this. There are no extra rolls that you don't, like you hit. So obviously you hit, so you're going to do some damage. Boom. Bob's your uncle. Move it forward. Melee, again, very simple, but when we played through it, it did take me a couple of tries to get it. Because melee, shooting is always very simple. Pretty much no matter what game you play, even games like Bolt Action or Black Seas, Cruel Seas, Victory Seas, where you have a lot of modifiers to deal with, and I guess probably, I think Infinity has a lot of modifiers, but I've never played Infinity, so I don't know that for sure. But melee always has a lot of extra steps because you're just doing more, there's more stuff happening. So in this one, you charge in, you use your charge action, and then when you're done with your charge action, only the defender does a pile in. So the defender will move in 3, and then then the attacker will swing. The attacker swings first in this. It is not Simo combat. That was something that tripped me up the first few interactions that we did when we played our first 1 or 2 games off camera, was that you don't swing Simo in this game, because that's just something that I'm used to. So it's actually like the charger will swing and then remove their casualties, and then whatever's left of the defending unit can strike back. You do all that, you figure out who took the most wounds. That one will take a morale test, and if you pass the morale test, you're fine. And if you fail the morale test, other stuff will happen, which we'll talk about in a second. And then if the defender is still alive, then the attacker steps away an inch. If the defender is completely wiped out, then the attacker can consolidate 3 inches. And then you would go to fatigue. So if a unit fights in melee, for the rest of that round, after it's already fought or struck back once, for the rest of that round, in melee, they only hit on 6s. Their shooting is not affected, but their melees will only hit on 6s for the rest of that round. And then after shooting or melee, there's a potential for morale tests. So like in other games, if you lose half the unit or more, or if it's a model that has a single model with a wounds characteristic, if you lose half your wounds or more, then you got to take a morale test. But morale tests are very simple. It's just you roll. It's a quality test. Again, going back, remember I said you only have 2 stats: quality and defense. You make a quality test. If it is equal to or better, you're good. And then some models will have units rules like fearless, where you get +1 of the roll. And then I'm sure that there are other things that have things where like if you're within an inch, then it affects you negatively. So you just got to make that test. Now, if you fail the test, there are 3 potential things that can happen to you. Number 1, you're pinned. If you took half wounds in the shooting and you fail the morale test, you are pinned. If you're pinned, then you only hit on 6s, you automatically fail morale tests, and you have to spend their next activation being idle and doing nothing. But doing that will remove the pin status, and then they will function as normal. So then that brings up an interesting tactical choice during the turn order for the next round is, do I go ahead and activate this unit and waste my activation? Not necessarily waste my activation, but use that activation early so that they're at least not just out there being doofuses and dinguses and getting just worked over. So that creates some interesting tactical priority choices, which is always fun, because that the tactical puzzle of it is the part of the joy of the game. I won't say it's the only joy, because painting and building and all that stuff, but that's a different topic. If you fail the test in melee because you lost melee, but you still have more than half your models or wounds, then again you are pinned. And if you take the morale test because you lost in melee and you have half or less as many models or toughness value as you started with, then you rout. And if you rout in this game, it just means you're removed from play, you're gone. So combat is a very quick affair, and I'm jumping around a little bit. I apologize for that. But again, I like that. I like that combat in melee is quick. And I like that you get that little bonus for being the charger, where you get to attack first, so it's not perfectly Simo. And I like that the turns go really quick. Now, albeit we only played some 750-point games, but still, we played 2 750 games in about an hour and a half, maybe, and that's with filming one of them. So I'm excited to see how the game flows and goes, because it flows quick. The game feels really good. Like, it feels good to be able to play an army game that quickly. And as much as I like the random mechanic of bolt action, and I may try this game with a random draw mechanic just to see how it plays, because that does create an interesting fog of war where you're constantly reacting. But you got to draw the dice out of the bag, and sometimes you just stand there because the dice man forgot to pull the dice out of the bag. And usually that's me. I'm Dice Man. Terrain rules in the game are very simple, basic. I like that. No like random stuff you got to roll through. You know, open terrain, impassable terrain, elevation, which is stuff you got to climb, which is just anything that's taller than 3 inches. You just count the vertical movement. There's no like, it doesn't slow you down to climb it. It just counts your movement as vertical movement. Cover terrain. Cover in this game is just a -1 penalty to your opponent's hit roll. So it's a -1 modifier to the hit roll for the attacker. Again, very, very, very simple. And it's if the majority of the models are in it or behind it from where so if it's a wall and you're shooting, you know, unit, wall, attacker, cover. But if it's unit, like wall, unit, attacker, then there's no cover because obviously the wall's not in the way. And with area terrain, they would just have to be the majority of them standing on it, which I like. I like that. I want there to be terrain rules because I want the board that I build to affect the game, but I don't want the terrain in the board that I build to create more bookkeeping because I don't wanna. I don't like it. There's enough trying to keep up with the board state and my opponent and what I think my opponent's going to be doing and what I think my opponent thinks I'm going to be doing. Don't pile on to me. Keep it simple, keep it clean, and they do a beautiful job of that here. And then we get into, like I said, the 2 pages of special rules. That's it, and they're all clean. Like none of them, like aircraft might be one of the longest paragraphs. Tough is somewhat long, but they're all very, very, very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of room for misinterpretation. You know? And obviously, you know, with your opponent, you talk things out. And then they'll give you some charts for placing terrain and terrain guidelines. This little blurb right here, I really, really, really like because it kind of tells you what to mix together for different things. So, for example, fields would be difficult terrain plus cover terrain. Barricades, cover terrain. Ruins are cover terrain plus dangerous terrain when you cross it with a rush or a charge action. So they give you a little quick reference for, you know, hills, rivers, lakes, ruins, barricades. The basic stuff you're going to have on a battlefield. And then they give you some methods for how you want to place the terrain. I generally just build a board that I think I will enjoy and go from there. Or I build a board that helps to tell the story that I have in my head. But then it's the same thing. I just go from there. And sometimes I'll tell my opponent about the story, and sometimes I just keep it for myself for a little secret. A little secret fun. And up to that point, that's the basic core rules of the game that you can go and download right now from free. I'll put a link down below to help you find it. And bear in mind, I have received and am receiving nothing for this. I just think they made a good product, and I want to play it. And since I'm going to play it, I figured I would talk about it for a little bit first. After that, you get into the extra missions, some extra actions that you can perform. And again, this is just kind of stuff. This is not core rules. This is just talk it out with your opponent. If you and your opponent want to use it and you think it applies, then go for it. There's rules for random events that can happen. You know, like a berserker or flash grenades or some monstrous spawn pop up or zombies pop up out of nowhere. I want to play zombies popping up out of nowhere. And you got like battlefield conditions, so like random things. This is okay. So this is, I guess, where you would get up. This is where you kind of go into random board effects like 0G or mystical fog. Just random, you know, stuff that can affect the entire table. Terrain and objective effects. Just extra rules. None of these are required. I'm not going to go super deep into these. Mainly because I haven't played with them yet, so I'm not sure how I feel about them on the table. We've just played with the core rules of the game. And probably will, at least for the first few battle reports, just playing with the core rules of the game until we have that figured out. Now, another thing, this part I do want to talk about. because this interests me a lot and has for a long time. And that's that they give you some stuff for small scale. So they give you some stuff for like 6mm, 20mm, 15mm, and multi-based models. And I don't know why, but 10mm 40K, like Epic, always just looked so freaking cool to me. You know, with like the big, like, they're big titans, but they're still, you know, little manageable models. It just always seemed really, really cool. And I've seen a few things of people more recently on Instagram of people posting like epic scale 40K models. And I wonder if this is why, because I haven't seen anything from the, you know, GW about epic scale anything, I don't think. But at the same time, I don't follow their news super closely. And then once you've got your core book, they've got all the army rules, like all your unit rules, your point costs, your upgrades, all of that stuff. That's also free to download. And another nice quality of life is they do have a web app for this that works fairly well. It took me a second to find it and to figure out what I was doing, but it's pretty intuitive. It's pretty easy to get through it. I think it does work better on a computer than it does a mobile device or a tablet. But yeah, that's helpful because I was super surprised that no one has, because this one-page rules is not like brand new. This is definitely not a new thing. They've been around for a while now, but they're starting to get out there a lot more. They're starting to, I think more people have become familiar with them, like myself. Like I heard about one-page rules probably within the last 6 months or so, maybe a year, and I'm just now getting to be able to play the game, and which is, I'm so excited because I have so many Spec Wolves, like a lot, y'all. Like I started Wargaming in probably 2012-ish, and I went in on Space Wolves hard. Which I've always been a very frugal player. Like I will buy eBay, I'll buy secondhand, I'll buy the cruddy, enameled up, you know, dirt cheap Craigslist models, and just put in the extra work to try to make them decent and playable because I love Wargaming, but I hate spending a whole bunch of excessive amounts of money. Not that I haven't done that, we all have, I think. That's just part of the hobby. Sometimes you got to buy things to make yourself feel better. And more importantly, if you play those other games and you already have models and the rules are free, there's not really a good reason to not play the game. You know, you've already got everything you need. Why not try something different? You might even like it. I sure do. Then again, I'm not a big fan of some other things, but that's not what we're here talking about. And I don't want to be negative, so I'm gonna redirect myself. Sorry, I bounce around sometimes. You may have noticed that. But this is a fun game. Like I said, we played 2 games in about an hour and a half. I'm really interested in the 6, 10, 15mm type scale stuff because I'm pretty sure I can print and paint that super fast once I found files that I like, or maybe scaled some stuff down. But I'm really excited to dig deeper into this. I'm excited to give the fantasy one a go. And also, I think the rank and flank one. I've never played a rank and flank game before. I was all 40K for a long time when Fantasy Battles was still alive. And then I didn't want to justify. Like, I was very in that mindset of this is the game. This is the one. And you know, obviously it was no Connor McLeod. It was definitely not the one. So final thing is, if you have models, whether it's a full army or a bunch of skirmishy warband stuff, if you haven't checked out the different games from these folks, I absolutely think you should, because you've already got everything you need to play. And I think you'll have a good time doing it. And as always, you don't have to agree with me, but I really wish you would. Whether you do or not, that's okay. Because we all like different stuff, and that's cool. And what I like is that you stopped by and hung out with me for a while today while I talked to you about Grimdark Future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and may the dice gods be ever in your favor. And as always, I'd like to say a big, huge, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to our patrons who support us and pledge to us over on Patreon. You guys are the absolute best. If you enjoyed the content you saw here today and that's something that you would like to consider doing to help out the channel, go over there, check out the link in the description, check out the Patreon. There's a lot of cool stuff over there, including access to our Discord server, talk to me, hang out with me, talk about our work, what we got going on in the hobby, some shout outs, all kinds of cool stuff. Check it out if that's something that you think you would be into. And regardless of whether or not you do that, I want you to know that I am incredibly grateful that you decided to stop by and spend part of your day with me today, rolling dice and pushing toy soldiers around. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, may the dice be ever in your